Good morning, Towson alumni. Welcome to another cooking edition with the chef here at Towson University. My name is Kevin Ryan. I'm the chef at Black and Gold Catering here at Towson University. I've been here for about 8 years, and today we're going to do something very different in Maryland. We're going to make a crab cake. So we're going to do a Maryland-style crab cake. Don't worry, I'm not from Maryland, but I can pretend to be for this little demo. But we're coming to you this morning from the remodeled Student Union building. We're actually standing in the sushi station, and there's all sorts of cool things that are new in this building. If you haven't been to check out the new one, it's maybe wait about 6 months because they're finishing up downstairs, but there's all sorts of cool new things, all sorts of new stations, an in-house Chick-fil-A, a Dunkin' Donuts, seating for like 8 million people. It's just beautiful. They basically refaced the building, and they have these beautiful roll-up doors on one side that when it's really nice, they have it rolled up, and then the outside comes inside, and it's very cool. It's super close to Verdict Hall now, and that's that walkway all the way to the Newell, all the way to West Village. It's very, very cool. They did a really good job. It looks really good. We're really excited to get some fun, exciting new foods in here for everyone. And really showing off what we can do. But as you can see, it's very cool. The design looks very modern, and it's very nice. Like I said, lots of fun stuff. Sushi, Chick-fil-A, Dunkin' Donuts, the same sandwich salads that the Union did before that everybody loves so much. There's going to be a taco station, a taco bar type station. There's a pizza station. There's all sorts of fun stuff here. And they haven't even finished Paws yet. So Paws is under construction right now. So they'll be finishing that construction, I think, by this winter break is their goal for Paws. So we'll see about that. And then that comes back online, and the student union is up and running again. So it's very exciting to be back in our old stomping grounds in the student union. And like I said, it's very cool the way they've connected the whole university here with this big walkway that connects the Newell all the way to the West Village without having to go over any roads or anything like that. It's very, very, very cool. So what we're doing this morning is we're going to build a crab cake. Lots of different decisions to make when you're building a crab cake, right? Where do I get the crab? What's the best crab? What's the bad crab? What's the good crab? There's a lot of different ways to do this. So there's not necessarily a wrong way to do this. I'm going to show you the way that I learned how to make crab cakes. So I did learn from someone from Baltimore. So I'm a Virginian, but Mr. Andy Ostler was my sous chef when I started here, and he's an old school East Baltimore guy. And it's funny, we exchanged recipes. Like the first thing we did, what do you put in a crab cake? And we were pretty much exactly the same, minus a couple tweaks here and there. And I have kind of assimilated to his recipe. So we have a lot of positive feedback on our crab cake. So I'm going to show you my recipe, but then if you want to do this at home and you want to put your own little spin on it, you like a little bit more Old Bay, you like a little bit of butter, you like using Ritz crackers instead of panko, then do that, because there's a lot of different ways to make a yummy crab cake. So crab meat is where you start. So we are using fresh Maryland jumbo lump crab meat. You can kind of see the lid here from the company that distributes this, and they're out of Cambridge, Maryland, right? I actually have seen this company before, because if you're ever in Cambridge, Maryland, there's a place called Snapper's Bar and Grill, and it's like right on the water, and then you're eating this delicious seafood, and it says distributed by JM Clayton Company, and then right across the parking lot is JM Clayton Company. So it's like that fresh, and that's funny that this was the brand that we got today, because I remember, like, wow, why is this so good? And then like, oh wow, look, it's right there. And they have delicious crabby nachos. So if you're ever in Cambridge, Maryland, look for I think it's called the Short Wharf, and go over to Snappers and have some crabby nachos, because they're really good. So first thing you gotta do is you gotta clean your crab meat if you're using fresh, right? Jumbo lump, super lump, colossal lump. What's the difference? The difference, is in the size of the actual piece of crab. So I don't know, I've got different cameras here, but you can see these are really big pieces of crab. So this falls into a jumbo lump category. There's a couple different categories. And basically the larger the lump, the more expensive the crab meat is a good rule of thumb. Lump, they've now crab distributors have built in this new category called super lump, which is kind of in between lump meat and the jumbo lump, and then you have something called colossal, which is even bigger than this. So when you're dealing with fresh crab meat, you're not always going to have access to fresh crab meat, and that's okay. You can still make a good crab cake with pasteurized crab meat. People think that pasteurized is not usable, and that's not true at all. There's some tricks. I'm going to talk about how to make that taste fresh again. But we're using fresh for this demo because we're making a Maryland crab cake. We're still in season for crabs, so we are going to use the good stuff. So what I do is I pick it. So what I'll do is I'll take the container and I use this to dip my hand so you can you're kind of going over the crab meat, and then boom, like the first one there, I feel a little shell there, and then you dip your finger and the shell stays in the water. You don't want to overwork the crab meat when you're doing this. You kind of just want to you feel around. You'll feel it if there's a shell in there. You don't have to. You don't want to overwork the crab meat. That's an important thing, and it's a kind of a theme and ongoing in making the crab cake. You don't really want to overwork it. You don't want to pay the extra money for these nice, beautiful lumps of crab meat and then just like destroy them, right? You want to take your time and make sure that you just got a little crab there, a little shell. It's not too shelly, which is nice. There are a couple other areas that you can consistently get crab meat from in the world that are pretty acceptable. If I was to sort of go through and rank what I would say the best to worst is, like obviously the Maryland, you're not going to get any better than the Maryland blue crabs. And I say that not because the blue crabs are much better than any other crab all around the world, because it's the freshest. It's the closest option that we have. So you're not going to be able to beat the freshness. You're not going to be able to beat the flavor that you're going to get from something that's that close. Now, if it's not in season and this is, I have to make crab cakes for a large party, then, we have to look at some other options. The Gulf Coast, in the Gulf of Mexico, like sort of Louisiana, Texas, stuff like that, they have a pretty steady supply, and that's still domestic and pretty close to us. So that one's a good option. And then when you start going international, there's two that are prevalent, and neither of them are great, but when it's the middle of the winter and you need a crab cake, the beggars can't be choosers type thing. So there's Venezuelan crab meat, which is okay, and then there's the Chinese market, and everybody goes, "Oh, the Chinese," and it's a better price point. It's definitely coming from halfway across the world, so it's mostly going to be pasteurized. But in the right situation, in the right application, using it responsibly, it can be used just like anything else can be used. And like I said, there are some tricks to using pasteurized crab meat. So pasteurized crab meat usually comes in a can, right? So that when you open up, like if I had just opened up the can and I put it in here, you don't really have to worry about picking pasteurized crab meat as much. Then you get it in here, and then maybe you do something to like sort of let it sit out and breathe for a minute to get, in case it got like that canned flavor to it. And then what I'll do is I'll put like a little lemon juice or something on it just to sort of brighten it up and to lose that sort of canning flavor. So with that said, we have our crab meat, and it's all, I don't have to do that. It's all mixed up in our bowl here. Now I'm going to do a couple things to the crab meat, and then I'm going to set it aside, and then I'm going to come back and make my sauce. So I love the combination of crab and lemon. Crab, lemon, butter, these are combinations that go very well with the crab cake. So one of the things that I do is I zest some lemon peel into the crab meat, right? So when you're going around, you're just circling around, you just want to get the outer part of the lemon. You're just really trying to get the yellow rind off the outside. You don't really want to dig too deep into it. And like I said, we're not dealing with a ton of crab meat here. We're making 2 pounds worth of crab meat. So we start with a zest of the crab meat, and then what I do is I'll go ahead and put our Old Bay seasoning. If you like a different type of seasoning, use the kind of seasoning you like. The J.O. seasoning is good. There's lots of good mixes, but we like the Old Bay around here. Start with a little. You can always take it out. Excuse me, you can always add more, opposite of what I just said, but you can't take it out. So whenever I'm starting with something, I always try to be a little judicious, not use a ton, and then when I come back and I taste it later, then if I need to add more, then I'll add more. So I add a little bit of Old Bay and the lemon zest, and I'm gonna sort of let it sit there for a second while I'm making my sauce. I'm probably gonna add my little bit of, I have some chives and some parsley that we already pre-cut in here. So I'm gonna eyeball my, I think I have a teaspoon and tablespoon on here. When you look at the recipe, big T means tablespoon, little t means teaspoon. So I'm not going to overwork it. I just want to sort of get it so it's incorporated a little bit, and then we're just going to set it off to the side. Right. So now we are going to make the sauce for the crab cake. So it's a mayonnaise-based sauce. You always start with your eggs. Basically, general rule of thumb. I mean, I've seen a third of a cup, a quarter cup. It's usually an egg up to a third of a cup of mayonnaise per pound of crab meat. So we're going to start with just 2 shelled eggs, and we're going to whisk them first. We're going to beat the egg, and then a little sloppy. I got a little quick. I see a little shell there. I mean, I could probably get away with it because it's crab, and they can say, "Oh, there's a shell. Oh, it's from the crab." But I'll grab it since I saw it. And then we're going to incorporate our mayonnaise. So it's 2/3 of a cup. So I have my 1/3 of a cup measure here. So I'm just going to do it once and twice. I mean, it's really a consistency to the sauce that you're looking for here. So once you incorporate the egg acts as a nice little binder for the crab cake. There's 2 things that are helping this crab cake stay together, and that's the breadcrumbs and the egg. So there's a couple other things that I add to the sauce too. So like hot sauce, pretty much everybody adds some sort of hot sauce for some reason. For me, it has to be Tabasco. I don't even really like Tabasco for a crab cake. I don't know why I have to have it be Tabasco. Maybe because it's the way I was taught. A little Worcestershire sauce is like the everything you make in Maryland has to have Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire, Worcestershire, spelled weird, pronounced even weirder. But I should know how to say it. Like a family's from Boston, I should probably know how to say that. And I'm going to do a little lemon juice in here too, because like I said, I really like the idea of lemon and crab together. When you're cooking, I mean, it's silly. It's everything. It's sort of important to have a point of view, like have something. Like for me, the focus of the crab beyond the crab meat is I want to taste a little bit of Old Bay, and I want to taste a little bit of lemon, and I want it to have a nice sort of subtle flavors beyond those flavors. The only thing I really I'm looking for, and I put just a little smidge of Dijon Mustard in there. So now I have everything in here that I want. I like the consistency of the sauce. It's sort of like a thicker dressing consistency if you were trying to so I gauge it. And then we have our sauce, we have our crab meat, and now we make the crab cake. And that's it. I mean, it's actually a very simple thing to do. This is a good recipe. Like I said, you can play with it at home. Now, 2/3 of a cup of breadcrumbs. I only brought 1/3 of the cup measure, so I use it for the mayonnaise. So I'm going to sort of eyeball it, but I'm good at these things. Don't worry, I'm a professional, kind of. So we have our breadcrumbs, we have our crab, we have everything that we were supposed to put in there first. We've made our sauce, and now it's time to make the crab cake. So again, like we're going to be careful not to overwork the crab cake when we're doing this, and it's not something that I put all of the dressing in at one time. I mean, it's supposed to be a measured amount, but at the same time, like each crab, each thing's a little different. It might absorb a little less, might absorb a little more. So it's little consistency that I'm looking for. So I'm just going to toss the breadcrumbs around. You know, there's some thought process on these breadcrumbs too, to be perfectly honest. I mean, more Baltimore style to use like rich crackers, and it does add that nice buttery flavor to it too. Sometimes when I make crab cakes, I just melt butter and put it right in there too, and that's a good trick too. Mr. Osler, my sous chef when I started, he used to put milk, soak them in milk first, and then drain the milk out. I didn't really know what that was supposed to do, and I know that some people do that with meatballs and stuff. So it's I'm not sure what it's supposed to do besides add that nice flavor of the milk, I suppose, but you're filtering it out. But anyways, I do like the Ritz. The Ritz is real good. So then I'm just sort of trying to toss it around a little bit. You want everything to come together. And then if you've done this enough times, like you can kind of tell, like I can tell that like that's kind of loose. So I'm gonna add some more breadcrumbs. The person that showed me how to make crab cakes the first time would yell at me for putting that much breadcrumb into the crab cakes. And then it looks like it could use a little bit more sauce. So we're gonna put a little bit more sauce there. And then before we cook it, we can taste it. I mean, the crab meat is cooked. I mean, technically the egg is not, but only 1 in every 10,000 egg has salmonella, so those are pretty good odds. So we can taste it. I mean, it's definitely got a nice lemon. It could use a little bit of Old Bay. Could use a little salt and pepper. But pretty much the only thing that I'm tasting right now is crab. And that's what you want. Like, so we'll get all Baltimore and throw some more Old Bay on here. Remix it, and then you got your mix. And then where you go from here is up to you. I mean, they can be cooked in the oven fully. They can be, I like them sort of cooked in a pan for a second just to get some nice color on them, and then finished in the oven is kind of the method that most restaurants use. I'm not sure anybody fries crab cakes anymore. I mean, I remember as a kid they used to ask you if you wanted to broil or fry, but I don't think I've had that question asked in a long time. So you can kind of tell that it all starts to come together, right? So the more I move it, the less it stays separated, the more it stays together. You can also take it in your hand and like, does it stay together? Yes and no. So, Chef LeConte, turn around. We're gonna add a little more breadcrumb. The crab meat was a little wet, right? There's all sorts of factors here. So, if it's wet, then you're gonna need to add something, breadcrumbs, to soak up that liquid and help bind it. If it's really dry, then it's more sauce. And I mean, so there's lots of things to consider when doing this. So I tried my best not to overwork the crab meat. So we've got our base there, and now we can portion it up. We can cook it. We can do whatever. You can hand patty it in the restaurants. What we normally do is use like basically like an ice cream scoop, and then it gives you the perfect sort of weight every time, so you get consistency and you can measure these things and so on and so forth. And if you want to see how to pan sear one, I do have a station set up over there, and we can do that too. So, what do you eat with a crab cake? Now you've made your crab cake and you're going to cook it, and it won't take too long to cook in the oven, maybe 10-15 minutes. I usually cook mine about 12 minutes at 350, and then check them, and then once they're nice and golden brown, you'll notice they start to, like, the egg and the butter start to puff up a little bit in the crab cake, and then you know they're perfect and ready to go. So we can go over all that, but we need a sauce for a crab cake. So there's lots of different sauces to make. Cocktail sauce is probably the easiest sauce in the world to make. Ketchup or chili sauce with horseradish, lemon juice, Worcestershire sauce, and pepper. Mix it together and you have cocktail sauce. I love either a tartar sauce or a remoulade, and we're going to show you how to make a Old Bay tartar sauce today. So, and again, might not go exactly by the recipe that's been provided, but if you look at the recipe, it's basically just mayonnaise. So we got some more mayonnaise here, and we got a fresh mixing bowl, and then red onion that's been chopped, and then with some pickles and capers, parsley, lemon juice, or I take like some pickle juice because I love pickles, and add it to that. So we'll make a little quick tartar sauce, and it's a good one. And then if you throw Old Bay in the tartar sauce, then oh my gosh, Old Bay tartar sauce. There's not much difference in that I've picked up between remoulade and tartar sauce. So if you like to, you're making this for a party and you want it to sound, I mean, remoulade sounds fancier than tartar sauce, and you want to make a remoulade, then you would just take, instead of the pickle, you would substitute that with celery, and then you could call it remoulade. So we're going to chop up our pickle a little bit. Excuse me, I couldn't have this done first, but I'm not too slow. So we have these nice garlic pickles, pears. So I'm just kind of, because I've done this a couple times. And you could do this in a food processor too. Like you could take the pickle and the onion and the capers, and you could just throw it in your food processor and chop it up. Also, when you're doing something with red onions, and that's like you're going to make tartar sauce, and red onions are they're going to turn it red, which they are going to turn it red. And a little trick is to soak the onion. So after you have it cut to whatever size you would like, then you just place it in a little water. Some people run water over it. That's not 100% necessary. Just soak it in water, and it helps it so the onion, which I did have pre-cut, if you have it, not that I brought a strainer with me because that would have been smart. So if you soak it, it helps get, it's twofold. It helps get that sort of zest, that bite of that red onion a little bit out, and it should help not run that color into the sauce. So, I mean, every time I do this in my kitchen, my sous chef will walk over next to me and he'll put a thing of mayonnaise next to me and a thing of pickle relish next to me and say, like, here, let me help you. And you could do that too. That's a perfectly acceptable tartar sauce. But things are better when they're fresh. Things are better like that. So we have pickles, a little red onion, capers. So you're going to be careful. You want to chop down these capers a little bit, but anytime you put capers and pickles into something, you be careful with the salt. You don't want to add too much salt to this because there's going to be a fair amount of salt that is going to be in these items already. And I always chop down the caper a little bit. I some people just throw capers in there, and I find it's a little bit, I don't know if I want to bite into a whole caper when I'm trying to eat a piece of fish or something. So I just kind of run my knife over it. It's called just a chopping motion. So you have the tip down on your board, right? You hold your knife with your fingers, or actually on the blade, and then your hand goes on the needle, and then you have much more control over it. So if you tip down and then your other hand on top, then there's really no way that you can cut yourself. Well, I have found ways to cut myself, but for the most part, you shouldn't cut yourself doing it that way. So We're gonna add a little bit of lemon juice because lemon and seafood are a combination meant for one another. And then I took a little pickle juice out of the pickle jar because I'm obsessed with pickles. And I'm gonna put it in there. And then we're gonna add a little bit of this parsley too, just to give it a little bit of color. And we're gonna mix it up. And again, like a tartar sauce for me is kind of a thicker sauce. Like I said, my father's side originally from New England, so like tartar sauce is everything with the fried clams and everything up there. So this is sort of a thicker tartar sauce, and then like, oh, I want to make it from Maryland. How do you do that? A little bit of Old Bay. So an Old Bay, now we have an Old Bay tartar sauce. Or if you had substituted celery for, and a little goes a long way with Old Bay for me. And then you have this nice, beautiful sauce. It's got the fresh onions and some capers and pickles in it, and really good with a lot of different types of seafood, and especially good with the crab cake. So we have our crab cake, and now we just have to cook it. So the easiest way to do it is to get a nice little sear in a pan. So if we make our way over here, easier said than done, to our saute station. So normally, if you came in during normal operating hours, then this would be the sushi area here, and this would be a where they'll do like like stir fries and things of like that nature over here. So if you're in the neighborhood, once we're open, you come by and check it out. And we probably would have already pre-scooped all of these and have them on trays, and then we'd have our sheet tray ready to go to put things onto it. This is a pan that is like all metal, so I would probably just throw the whole pan in the oven myself. But so we're gonna let it warm up, and here's another like good cooking tip is like always let your oven preheat, right? The culinary school line was like heat the pan, heat the oil, heat the food. So it's a good rule of thumb. So always preheat your pan. This is a induction burner here, so like they heat up very quick. So the rule is like once you can't stand like your hand being there for more than a couple seconds, then it's hot. But like I said, these warm up fast. So we're gonna turn it up. We're gonna put our oil in there. We're gonna let the oil warm up too, and then we'll plop a couple in there. You can kind of tell when the oil starts to get red. It's called swimming. When the oil starts to, you can kind of tell it's kind of like moving around a little bit more. It starts to thin out, separate a little bit, and it's getting a little bit closer. So it's getting hot here. Like I said, these induction pans, they go quick. So we've got our mix. So we'll use little scoopers and stuff like this. So you can fry it in oil and butter. Yeah, oh, nice little sizzle. That's what we want to hear. And then I push it down so it doesn't look like it's machine made type thing. So you can always just portion these by hand and patty by hand. Like I said, if you're always worried about portion size in a restaurant and things like that. So, but butter, oil, I use a blended oil that's a certain amount of canola oil and a certain amount of olive oil. It's cooking at a pretty high temp right now, so we're gonna cook that down a little bit, and we're just trying to get a nice little color on it. And then I brought also a good tool for cooking fish or crab cakes or anything like that. It's called a fish spatula. And it's got a little bit of flex in it, and it helps break things away from the bottom of the pan. So it's a good tool to use when you're cooking anything seafood, especially when you're sauteing or searing or however you want to say. This thing does work well. That came up quick. So you can start to kind of see like around the edges starting to get brown. Like I can sort of just give it a little sneak peek here if I'm careful and try to see. And when it's it's kind of browning on the edge, so I think it's time to give it a little flip. And here's another way that you can flip it, right? The top is not hot. It's not been cooked yet. So if you can get your thing underneath, you can keep your hand on the cold part and just go right over top. And you see we got that beautiful brown crust on the crab cake. Oh, it looks delicious. And then we will do the other side. And then this isn't enough to heat it all the way through, however. So, like, you would probably pop this in the oven for, like I said, I always start mine 350 for about 12 minutes, and then I double check. You can kind of see it starts to, almost like a pancake. When I'm cooking a pancake and it rises a little bit, it will puff up with just a little bit, and that's that egg that's expanding and it's cooking all the way through. And you make sure it gets hot all the way through, and then you're ready to go. And that's Crab Cake 101 at Towson University. It is actually a pretty simplistic dish. There's a couple ingredients to make the sauce, but I mean, most of those things, at least in my house or whatever, are sort of common stock items. So it's not like you have to rush to the store to get hot sauce. I mean, enjoy it with whatever you like. I mean that's the great thing about crab cakes too. Like, I mean, we could do a whole other shoot on like what to eat with the crab cakes: coleslaw, potatoes, rice. I mean, it goes good with everything: asparagus, vegetables. So it can be fun paired with other types of proteins too. So I mean, crab is just so versatile, and this is just a fun way to do it. And like for me, this is the top dog, the crab cake. I'm not gonna sit at a table and pick crabs for 2 hours and get like 2 ounces of crab meat. Like, you bring me the big jumbo lump crab cake and let me get it all at one time. So I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you picked up a little something. Like we said, the information is provided for all the recipes and whatnot. And if you want to doctor them and make them your own, and you definitely, as your little chefs at home, you should be doing that and making it the way you like to enjoy things. And if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to ask us. We're always available. And I'm sure that we can share that contact information as well if any questions on that. So thanks very much. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye.